Hey, guess what day it is? Saturday. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to today's Stick Mobility class. I am Coach Ray. Thank you for joining me for today. So for today's class, we are going to need one stick. We're only going to use one long stick today, all right? So the main focus of today is we're actually going to get into a dumpy squat hip hinging exercise. We've done this before. It's going to be a little fun today. So I want to kind of get into that. Also want to make sure we get into a little bit of core and shoulder. So we are going to be doing a prone stick press or laying face down. So I'll make sure to speak loud enough so everybody can hear me there. I do want to make sure we kind of go through the entire body. We're going to spend quite a bit of time focusing on opening up the spine, stretching out, and we're also going to get into a bow and arrow variation. It's going to be a little bit different than we usually do. All right. So as usual, let's get started, folks. All right. So I'm going to step back here. Since we are going to be getting into a squat and hinge type of exercise, I do want to focus on the feet and ankles first. So I'm going to take a shoulder width stance. We're not going to spend too much time here. And I want to have the stick angled in towards me. Hands at shoulder height or chest to shoulder height. And what I want to do is I want to squat down a little bit. I want to make sure I'm up nice and tall here. So we're going to teeter-totter going back and forth, meaning my right heel is going to come up, making sure all 5 toes are in contact with the floor, while my left heel stays planted, and then I'm going to switch, bring my left heel up, right heel down, all the way down to the floor. Switch again. Good. Bring that left heel up, right heel down. We're just using the stick for balance here. Right heel up, left heel down. Good, left heel up, right heel down. Again, right heel up, left heel down. Good, left heel up, right heel down. Switch, right heel up, left heel down. One last time, left heel up, right heel down. Then we're going to slowly return back to where we were. Now, we're going to move on to pelvic tilts, all right? So this one's going to be a little position specific. So since we are going to be in a hinge, I do want to be in this position here. I don't want to be straight up. Again, since we're going to be in a hinge here, I want to make sure the spine's at a certain angle as we actually start to work with moving the pelvis here. So I'll do this from the side first. And so from here, notice I'm at a little bit of an angle, not too much. And I want my hands to be roughly about where my chest is. I'm going to lightly drive that stick into the floor, about 15 to 20% tension. And I want to make sure I'm gripping the ground with my toes here. Now from this position, keeping my spine where it's at, I'm going to do a posterior tilt. So I'm going to tuck my pelvis, squeeze my glutes, and then I'm going to do an anterior tilt. Tuck the opposite way. Should feel those lower back tissues tighten. So do a posterior tilt. Excellent. Anterior tilt. Good. Posterior tilt. Anterior tilt. Let's go one more time each way. Posterior tilt. Good. Feel those glutes squeeze. Anterior tilt. Back to neutral. And ease off. Now we're going to get into lateral hip bumping. So we want to bump one hip up as the other hip drops. So it's going to be just like so. All right. So feet are a little wider than shoulder width here, just a tiny bit. Hands are about roughly chest height. Squat down a bit. Keep a slight posterior tilt. Drive that stick into the ground. Now I want to bump my right hip up. So you don't want the spine to move. Now I'm going to bump the left hip up. Excellent. Bump up the right hip. The right glute should be squeezing. Bump up the left hip. Excellent. Bump up the right. Keep driving that stick into the ground. Bump up the left. Bump up the right one more time. And bump up the left hip. Good. Back to center and relax. So now we're going to get into rotations. So I'm gonna take the stick and I'm gonna have it behind my mid-back, and I want it in the crooks of my elbows here. Now the hands can be on the rib cage or it can be off, but you just want the hands to be forward. Now I'm gonna take a little wider than shoulder width stance. From here, what I wanna do, without rotating my feet or my hips, I wanna rotate side to side. So the movement's coming off from the spine. So from here, I'm gonna create some tension in the stick by driving my hands forward lightly. You should see my shoulders drop a little bit. Now from here, I'm gonna drive my left hand forward and across, rotating to my right, keeping my hips facing forward. So I need to drive that right hip going forward here. Now I'm gonna come back to center, go the opposite way. Drive my right hand across and forward, driving my left hip forward. Right, so we're trying to close that chain here. Back to center, drive that left hand forward, rotate to the right. Back to center, rotate to the left, drive that right hand forward. Back to center. Now we're gonna segment the hips. So I'm gonna rotate to the right, drive my right hand forward, hips follow. Make sure the feet don't move, so we're loading that internal rotation on that right hip. Now I'm gonna come back to center. Now I'm gonna rotate to the left. Good. Remember to keep the hips rotating. Back to center, rotate to the right. Excellent. Back to center, rotate to the left. Remember to keep those feet where they are. Now we're gonna pivot and segment the feet. So I'm gonna rotate to the right, pivoting off that left foot, getting as much rotation as I can. Back to center, rotate to the left, pivot off the right foot. Back to center, one more time each way, rotate to the right, pivot. Back to center, rotate to the left, pivot. Back to center, keep the stick where it's at. You're now gonna hinge, right? So from this position here, and I'll actually turn to the side. So we're gonna hinge, and now what I wanna do is I wanna rotate from this position. So I'm gonna take my left hand, place it on my back hand on the inside of my thigh here. I'm gonna use that left hand to leverage on the inside of that left thigh to get some rotation. Good. We're gonna come back to center. We're gonna switch and do the opposite. Use the right hand to leverage on the inside of the right thigh, push to get that rotation. Come back to center. Let's go 2 more each way. Pull that left hand on the inside of that thigh, leverage. Excellent. Opposite way, rotate to the left, leverage that right hand on the inside of the thigh. Excellent, back to center. Let's go one last time. Leverage that left hand on the inside. Open up. Back to center. Leverage that right hand. Open up. Back to center. And come up and relax. All right. Now we're going to get into opening up the spine through extension here. So I have a squat rack here. I'm going to move this camera a little bit so you can see. Now I'm going to use the corner of the squat rack to act as a wall here. I want to use it to get into extension. So I'm going to step back, and I want the stick to be close enough to where it lays on my chest, independent of my hands. Then I'm going to take a small step forward. I want to keep my hands stretched out, all right? Keep my hands at the top of the stick here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive my hips back, shift my hands forward, and try to drive my chest through. We're going to get that extension in the T-spine here. Excellent. Come back up. Let's do that 2 more times. So drive those hands forward, drive the hips away. Back up. Excellent. Let's go one more time. Make sure you breathe. Drive the hips away. Excellent. Back up and relax. Good. So now we're going to get into working with some kayaking. We're going to go through this and we're going to add in push and pull in certain ranges just to make sure we actually kind of get the shoulders in those either potentially weaker positions, but also to warm up all the tissues here, folks. All right, so let's get into it. So I'm gonna grab the stick out as wide as I can go. I'm gonna start my right hand up. We're gonna slowly start to kayak here. So keep your hips extended by driving those glutes, squeezing the glutes. Let's go ahead and start to slowly work through the kayak here. Now I want to feel the shoulder blades gliding along the rib cage. Nice and slow, controlled. Excellent. We're not really rotating the spine here, just getting the shoulder blades to move. Excellent. Stop at this range here. Pull the stick apart and compress the stick. Pull apart, feel that upper back get tense. Compress, feel those anterior tissues turn on. Ease off that compression. Up with the right hand, over to the other side. Hold here, pull apart. Good. Compress. Make sure you're breathing. Pull apart. Trying to get some of that tension here. And compress. Ease off that tension. There we go. Keep it going. Pause here. Pull the stick apart. Compress the stick. Excellent. Pull apart. And compress. Ease off. Drive that left hand through. Right hand comes up and over. Pause. Pull apart. Compress. Excellent. Pull apart. And compress. And ease off. And relax. Okay? Let's take a second here. Now I want to get into one last drill. This is going to be an RDL. This is particular for a balance. All right? This is mainly going to be for balance and just kind of warming up the hip hinging. So I'm going to take the stick, place it behind my upper back. Now let's go ahead and start on the right foot first. And you want to make sure you're gripping the ground with your toes here. We've done this before. And what I want to do, gripping the ground, that creates an arch in the foot. I'm going to hover that left foot off. Now we're going to slowly drive that left foot back, left heel back as we hinge. You want to stay controlled. Go down, driving those hips back. Excellent. Come up nice and slow. Good. Let's go two more here. Drive that left heel back, hinge. Breathe. Come up. Excellent. Keep that foot hovering. One more time. Hinge. Whoa. Try to find that balance. Back up. And ease off. Let's go ahead and switch sides. Right. Grab the ground with your left foot. Over the right. Go ahead and drive that right heel back. Hold. Back up. Excellent. Let's go 2 more. Hinge. Want to try to keep that stick as even as possible. You don't want the stick to be turned one way or the other. Back up. Excellent. Let's go 1 more time here. Hinge. Drive that heel back, drive those hips back. 3, 2, 1, back up. And ease off. Excellent. All right. Now that's where we're getting to the fun stuff. So I'm going to be in the squat rack here. So we're going to need something for us to push the stick up into. Now, the first part of the movement is actually going to be a hip hinge. So we're going to move from the hip hinge into a deep squat, back into a hinge, and then straight up again. So this takes a little bit of time. And so with this, how you set up is going to be completely dependent upon you. So I'm actually going to move this a little closer. Now, in terms of stance width, again, it's going to be preference. I would personally suggest going with a little bit wider than shoulder width, but that's just me. And so I'm gonna go a little wider than shoulder width here. I'm actually gonna have my toes angled out slightly. This tends to be the most comfortable. So toe angle, you can play around with it. Now the stick is gonna be directly in front, in line with the center line here. I wanna have my hands at roughly about belly button height, maybe waist height, somewhere around there. Now the first movement, grab the ground with the toes, make sure you got that good stability there, lock that in. Drive the stick up, 50% tension. You should feel those erectors kind of turn on here, keep you up nice and tall. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna drive the hips back, like we're in a hinge, only a slight bend to the knees. Now my head is actually guiding along the stick here. So I know I'm in a good path, keep pushing that stick up. Now from here, slowly drop into a deep squat. Hold. 3, 2, 1. So start to drive those hips back and up. Hold. 3, 2, 1. Squeeze those glutes all the way to hip extension. Hold and ease off. Like I said, it's a long rep. So let's go a few more here. We're gonna keep the tension at 50%. So keep the hands where they're at. Grab the ground, drive the stick up. First thing, hinge. Drive those hips back, push yourself down. Remember, it's only a slight bend to the knees. Slowly drop into the squat. Good. Drive those hips back. 3, 2, 1. Squeeze those glutes. Get into that hip extension. And relax. Excellent. We got 2 more here. We're going to change the stance. So it's going to make it a little bit more challenging. Let's go ahead and widen our stance out just a little bit. So as we get into that hinge, it's going to create more demand on the hamstrings and a little bit on those long adductors here. So also switch your hands as well. Same thing, make sure you're grabbing the ground with your toes. Drive the stick up 50%. Drive those hips back. Slowly push yourself down into a deep squat. Drive those hips up and back. 3, 2, 1. Squeeze those glutes all the way to hip extension and ease off. Excellent. Let's go one more time here, folks. So shift for those hips. Kind of open up a little bit more as we do this. Last one. Grab the ground. Drive the stick up. Hinge. Good. Slowly drive yourself down into that squat. Good, drive those hips back. 3, 2, 1, squeeze those glutes. And ease off. Excellent. All right, that was the first movement. Now we're gonna get into working with hip abduction. And with this here, we're gonna be driving the stick into the wall to get some of that lateral tension. So we're gonna get the obliques involved here. We're gonna get that entire lateral hip involved. So from here, I would like, so you can go with a 90-degree elbow bend. If you want more of a challenge, you can always go with an arm straight, all right? Now, the main objective here is as we push the stick into the wall, we generate tension here, but we're also kind of pushing ourselves this way. So you need to fight to keep yourself upright as we do this here. So I'm gonna have my hands stretched out, like so. Stick's going to my right. I'm gonna start on my right hip, so it's that inside hip. That's the one that's actually abducting here. Now, hands are gonna be roughly about sternum height. Having my feet together. First thing I wanna do, drive the stick into the wall with about 50% tension, keeping those arms straight. I'm gonna hover that right foot off the floor, keeping my toes facing forward. I wanna bring my hip up, my foot up as high as I can. Push. 3, 2, 1, back down. Place the foot down and ease off. Okay, let's go one more, and then we're gonna flip or switch our hip position here, all right? So, drive the stick into the wall, 50%. Stay up nice and tall, hover that right foot. Bring that right foot up, toes facing forward. 3, 2, 1, back down. And ease off. Now what we're gonna do here, we're gonna externally rotate the hip so the toes are gonna be facing outwards, all right? So from here, same thing. Drive the stick into the wall. I'm going to hover the foot, rotate my hip outwards, basically rotating my knee outwards. Hold, bring it up. 3, 2, 1, back down. Face it back forward, place the foot down and ease off. Now after doing that one, you're probably gonna feel that rec fem fire quite a bit. That's what we're going for here. Arm straight, drive the stick into the wall, hover the right foot, rotate that hip, bring that leg up. 3, 2, 1, back down. Rotate the foot forward and ease off. Excellent. Now we're gonna switch sides. Sorry, need to move this over here. So we do that same thing. So remember, stick out in front, like so. Oh, this is not a good angle. My apologies, folks, my apologies. Angling's not particularly good. All right, same thing, feet together. Drive the stick into the wall, 50% with both arms. Keep those toes facing forward. Bring that hip up. 3, 2, 1, back down. And ease off. Excellent. Let's go one more. Then we'll switch our hip. Drive the stick into the wall, 50%. Hover the left foot. Bring that hip up. 3, 2, 1, back down. And ease off. All right, now we're gonna externally rotate that hip. Arm straight, drive the stick into the wall, hover the left foot, rotate that hip outwards, bring it up. 3, 2, 1, back down. Rotate it back forward and ease off. One more here. Drive the stick into the wall, hover that left foot, externally rotate that hip, bring it up. 3, 2, 1, back down. Rotate it forward and ease off. Excellent. Now, let's take a second. We're gonna go to the floor here. So this is where we get into that prone stick press. So make sure I speak loud enough so everybody can hear me. So we're gonna go face down. Now for this one, the main objective here is to try not extending through the lumbar as we go through this. So we do want to make sure we tuck the pelvis, squeeze the glutes just to lock that lumbar into a good stable position as we actually start to work with the shoulders. So we're gonna lift the stick off the floor first, pull down, back up, and down. And that's gonna be 1 repetition, all right? So as usual, this is gonna depend on your mobility. So from here, let me turn this way a little bit more. I want to have my hands a little wide, well, quite a bit wider shoulder width to start off with. Now, arms straight out. I'm gonna hover my head off the floor because I want to keep myself in extension. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna squeeze my glutes, and now I'm gonna pull the stick apart, about 50% tension, and I want to lift the stick off the floor, hold, pulling the stick apart, bring it down towards your upper back, keep pulling, keep pulling, keep pulling. Once you touch the upper back, press it back out overhead, lock those arms out, and bring the stick back down and ease off. That's 1 rep. Let's go 2 more. So squeeze those glutes, pull the stick apart, bring it up. Excellent, bring the stick down towards your upper back. Keep pulling apart, touch your upper back, press back up, back down, and ease off. Excellent. Let's go 1 more time. Let's try to move those hands in a little bit closer to make it more challenging. Arms extended, squeeze the glutes, pull the stick apart, hands up, bring it off the floor, pull, bring it down, touch the upper back, press it back out, bring it down to the floor, and ease off. Good God. All right. That is the strength training portion. That was a hard one. Good God. All right, so now we're going to get into the deep fascial stretching and loosening everything up. So since we did do that stick press for the last drill that we did, I want to start off by loosening up the shoulders and the biceps and the neck tissues here. So I'm gonna actually use the corner over here. This is gonna act like the corner of a wall here. Now, what we can do is we can actually use this as a way to rotate into getting a stretch and then coming back out. So for me, actually I'm gonna go here, it's gonna be better. So have the bottom of the stick into the corner of a wall here. I want to have it in my right hand. So I'm going to have the stick right by my hip. And I want to step forward enough so I get that arm back into extension here. I want that shoulder in extension. So I want to make sure my arm is straight. And I'm going to very lightly drive the stick forward. Now from here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to rotate my torso and hips away from the stick. Now as you do that and rotating your head to your left, you should feel a stretch in the shoulder, the bicep, maybe a little bit of the chest depending on how tight you are. You want to keep the stick close to your hips as well. You don't want it to drift out. And we're going to come back to facing forward to ease off that stretch. We're going to do that again. So lightly drive the stick into the corner, rotate to the left, rotate your head to the left. Make sure you keep that shoulder down, don't let it come up towards your ear. Let's go ahead and ease off. Excellent. Let's go one more time here, then we'll switch sides. Lightly drive that stick forward. Rotate your torso and head. Make sure you breathe. Excellent. Back forward and ease off. Let's go ahead and switch sides. We're gonna do that same thing. Right foot forward, sticks in the left hand, keep that left arm straight. Lightly drive that stick forward. Rotate your torso and head. Excellent. Ease off. Rotate forward. All right, let's go two more. Keep that arm straight. Drive the stick in. Rotate to your right. Excellent. Back forward. Ease off. Let's do that one more time. Drive that stick forward lightly. Rotate your torso to the right. Excellent. Ease off. Good. Now, we're going to get into stretching out the neck in particular. We're going to get into the lateral tissues, the posterior tissues, as well as the anterior tissues. So I'm going to take the stick behind my back, and I want to have my hands right outside of my hips here. So to turn around, this is where my hands are at. So the main objective with this is to make sure we're staying up nice and tall, but controlling the rib cage. So you don't want that rib cage to flare up. You want to keep it down. So keep the arms straight, and I want to first drive the stick towards the floor, and then I'm going to pull the stick apart lightly. Now from here, pull the chin back, so you want to bring that neck into extension. Now I'm going to tilt my head towards my right, bringing my right ear down towards my right shoulder. You're going to feel a stretch on the left side of that neck. Bring it back up to center. Still pulling apart and driving that stick towards the floor. Now tilt it to the left. Bringing that left ear down towards that left shoulder. Don't let the right shoulder come up. You want to still drive that thing down. Breathe. Back to center. Okay, keep pulling that chin back. Now I'm going to tuck my chin down towards my collarbone. Now we get those posterior neck tissues, maybe even a little bit of the traps if it's tight. Excellent. Back up to neutral. Now I'm going to tilt my head back, poking my chin up towards the ceiling. Come back down and ease off. Excellent. All right, so now I want to get into stretching out the hips a little bit, since we did do a hinge to squat pattern. So I'm going to take the pad. We're gonna go down to the floor. We're gonna stretch out the hip flexor. What we're gonna do is we're going to work in and out of the stretch. So we're not gonna stay there. We're just gonna kind of floss the hip flexor, if you will. So left knee is down. I have my back foot on plantar flexing or extending that ankle. And I'll actually start from the side here. So my right leg is forward. And for me, I kind of like to have my right foot forward a little bit. I don't want it at 90 degrees. I actually want it out a little bit more so I can actually shift into it a little bit better. Now, the stick is going to be in line with my center line here. Both hands going to be on the stick, roughly about chest height. Now, my first action, I want to drive that back foot down into the floor, about 20% tension. And then from there, I'm going to tuck the pelvis and squeeze the glute. This is the position we need to keep the entire time. Now, drive that stick into the floor lightly. And I'm going to shift my hips forward, hold for a second, and then I'm going to come back out of it. Let's do that again. Shift those hips forward, keep that glute squeezed. Shift out. Let's go a few more. Shift forward. Really try to split those hips. Slowly come back. Make sure you're keeping that glute tight, pelvic tuck. Shift forward. Good, come back. We're gonna hold this one for 5 seconds. Shift those hips forward. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly ease off and relax. We're gonna switch sides. So I'm gonna rotate forward here. Same thing, drive that back foot into the floor, squeeze that right glute, tuck the pelvis. Drive that stick into the ground lightly, shift those hips forward, hold, back out, nice and slow. 1, shift forward. Excellent, that's 2, shift forward. That's 3, 2 more. Shift forward, try to split those hips. 4, excellent, one more time, hold for 5 seconds. Shift forward, keep that glute tight, pelvic tuck. 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly ease off and relax. We're gonna stay down in this position. We're gonna stretch out the hamstrings now. So I'm gonna kind of turn to the side here. Now my left leg is still forward, so I'm going to stretch that left hamstring first. So I'm going to have my left heel on the ground, and I do want to keep a slight bend to the knee. Now the stick's on my right shoulder, and I'm going to use the stick as a way to guide myself down into stretching out that hamstring here. Now if you feel that you're getting too much tension in the back of the knee, bend that knee a little bit more. So from here, now my back foot, I'm plantar flexing it, so dorsiflexing, so I'm getting that big toe into the floor here. Lightly drive that left heel down into the floor, keeping that ankle dorsiflexed. Slowly guide yourself going down the stick till you find a stretch. Hold that position. Slowly come back up. Excellent, ease off that tension. Let's go 2 more. Lightly drive that heel into the floor. Guide yourself down the stick. Three, 2, 1, back up. Excellent. Let's go one more time. Drive that heel down. Really lightly. Get that stretch in the hamstring. 3, 2, 1, back up. And relax. Let's go ahead and switch sides. So left knee down, right leg forward. We're going to keep that heel on the ground, slight bend to that knee. Sticks on the left shoulder here. So lightly drive that heel into the floor, create that tension, shift, or guide yourself down the stick, find that stretch in the hamstring. Make sure you breathe, trying to tense up. Always control your breathing. Slowly come back up. Ease off. All right, let's go 2 more. Keep that ankle dorsiflexed. Drive that heel into the ground. Hinge forward. 3, 2, 1. Back up. Excellent. Let's go one more time. Drive that heel down. Hinge. Guide yourself down the stick. Three, 2, 1. Back up. And ease off. Excellent. Now we're going to get into that bow and arrow variation that I was talking about. So this is going to be a little bit of a combination between a back bend and a bow and arrow. So we're going to take a little extra time setting this thing up here. So I'm going to kick this over to the side. Now in terms of the placement of the stick, I want the stick to be, so if I'm going back this way, I want the stick to be effectively right behind that leg. So the stick's in my left hand, I want it right behind my left leg here, or at least the bottom of the stick, so that when I go back into it, it's not forcing me to rotate too much. All right? So I'll actually turn to the side here, and I'll start off on my left side. So I'm going to position a stick about 1 foot, maybe 1.5 feet away from the line of my heels on my left foot heel. Here, sorry. So my left hand is going to be roughly about where the middle of the stick is, or waist height. I'm going to take my right hand and I'm going to grab with my thumb facing down here. You can adjust your hand if you need to. Now the first action is to squeeze the glutes to drive the hips away, keep that lower back safe, and then I'm going to drive my hands out, reaching back. Excellent. Slowly ease off. Good. Let's go ahead and rotate the stick. You're going to feel those anterior tissues open up, but you still feel a little bit of the lateral tissues as well. So we're going to do that same thing again. This time I'm going to move the stick, or move my arm, to open up that chest a little bit more. So squeeze the glutes, drive those hips forward, create that bow. I'm going to move my arm over a bit more. So I'm also getting a little bit more extension. Excellent. I'm going to ease off and relax. We're going to switch sides here. So I'm going to turn forward. So I'm going to set up the same way. Right hand is roughly about where the hips are. Take my left hand up, grab thumb facing down towards the floor. Squeeze those glutes. Create that bow. Leaning back. Three, 2, 1. Slowly come out. Rotate the stick a bit. Excellent. Same thing. Squeeze those glutes. Drive the hips away from the stick. Drive those hands out. Now we're going to bring it over like so. 3, 2, 1. Bring it back. Slowly ease off and relax. And that, my friends, concludes today's stick mobility class. And as usual, thank you for joining me for today. Hope everybody had a good class. Want to do something a little bit different. I'll be sure to catch you guys next weekend. Stay safe and have a good one.